This is the man who coined the phrase Mr. November. You got it in the radio booth when Derek hit the homer to beat Arizona in one of those World Series games at Yankee Stadium. He's our good buddy, Michael Kay. Mr. Kay, nice to talk. How are you today, buddy? Okay?
I'm doing great, Chris. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing well. That was wonderful that night. Let's go back to the origins. The home run right against the Diamondbacks. Mr. November, you called it. Go ahead. Let's talk about it. Fire away.
I just remember I looked up when he stepped into the plate, and I saw the clock in the old Yankee Stadium strike 12, and I thought to myself, oh, it's November. And then when he hit the home run, everybody used to call Reggie Mr. October, and I just came and said Mr. November. And there was a guy in the stands with a sign that had Mr. November as well. So all the stars aligned, and that just came out of my mouth in 3 C's. So I've been lucky, Chris, if you think about it. John and I used to share play-by-play on the radio, where I only did 3 innings of play-by-play, but it seemed like every big moment that Derek had, I was doing the play-by-play. And I guess I'm just like a little footnote to his history, which is kind of neat to be piggybacking on him.
You are not a footnote. You've had a hell of a career. Now, in 96, his first game, at opening day. I understand he played a little bit in 95. I don't know. Were you doing the radio then, or were you covering it on the Daily News? Were you doing a radio broadcast on the old was it ABC back in 96?
WABC. Yeah, John and I were doing the radio.
Did you know that, what was your expectations, not just in that game? We all knew Jeter was a player that had to be reckoned with. We didn't think this good. Did you sense something magical in the air on opening day against the Indians when he hit the homer and made the great catch in short left field?
Well, you just knew that after the game that there wasn't going to be a moment that was going to overwhelm him, and that proved out over his entire career, and I think that's what made him great, because you would think first game he's facing Dennis Martinez, that, maybe he'd have a little bit of a stumble. This is big. You're the Yankees starting shortstop, and during spring training there was some talk. There was a meeting about whether he was ready or not, and Willie Randolph stood up and said, you got to give him a chance. This kid's going to be good. And then he makes that over-the-shoulder catch, and he hits a home run off of Martinez, and you just knew that no moment was going to overwhelm him. And the one stat of all the stats, Chris, that jump out at me is that his batting average for his career is almost the identical batting average as what he had during the postseason. He played 158 games in the postseason, which is a full season. So he played October games as if they were games in May. Every game was the exact same to him. He just went there to play baseball. So I guess that first game in 96 should have told us that.
That's a great point, the batting average and basically the same kind of player. My father used to tell me a lot of this about DiMaggio. He never saw him make a mistake. And I can't, listen, I was rooting against the Yankees half this time, as you know. But I cannot think of a big game in my life where he made a big mistake, even offensively, where he didn't get a runner over from second to third, 3 strikeouts in a big postseason game. I can't think of any scenario where I say to myself, out of position, didn't play that ground ball right, didn't turn a double play. You can't kill him on Gonzalez. The infield was in. He couldn't make that catch on the bloop. Where did he make a mistake in a big game, Michael? Give me a ball game.
Well, the only time I could remember, and you'll remember it too, it was a series against the Texas Rangers, a playoff series, and the first game of the series, I think he made an error or two at shortstop.
You're right. Yes, you're
and
right.
The next day, the Daily News' headline was short slop. And Derek, in his own way, really carried a grudge that way. And that served to motivate him, and he never forgot it and brought it up every now and then. And then he came back the next day, the next game, and had a tremendous game. So that, of all big games, that was the one that you think about and go, well, he made some mistakes there. And then you start to think, well, he's a kid. Maybe the moment overwhelmed him. But he walked past Joe Torre's office that day and poked his head in and smiled and said, get some sleep, Mr. T. You got it tomorrow. I mean, he never let anything bother him.
Very much like Jordan, who never talked to Sports Illustrated again after, they said beg it when he tried to play baseball. Same thing with Jeter. I could see Jeter having a long memory with the Daily News. That is an excellent, excellent point. All right, that's number 2. Number 3, the big moments in which you did the games. I mean, are you surprised that he had a home run for hit number 3,000? Are you surprised that his last at bat base hit into his signature spot in right field to win the game? I mean, he said goodbye to Yankee Stadium there in 2008. He never, for whatever the reason, every time there was a big spot, You were behind a microphone with Sterling, and he came through. How about that for a sec? Let me hear.
You know what? It was hard to be surprised anymore because, as I said in the call that you played before I came on, was there ever any doubt? You just knew that he was going to come through in moments. And, he had a flair for the dramatic, although he wasn't dramatic. He wasn't a dramatic guy. Except he came up in very, very big moments. And if you look at the arc of his career from the beginning until the end, very little rain fell into Derek's universe. I mean, everything good happened for him. And, for reasons that he worked really hard and was extremely talented. And that's why yesterday, when he gets chosen and there's one voter that didn't vote for him, that's like one of the rare raindrops that ever fell in his life. I mean, he's had a beautiful, like perfect life. And one guy didn't vote for him, one gal, whoever it may be. And that's really one small negative. And even handled that well, Chris. He didn't say, I'd like to find out who it was. He said, well, look how many people voted for me. He just had an innate ability to always do the right thing at the right time.
100%. Do you think he was bothered the fact that Jeffrey Mayer gets all the chatter on the board of right field that he hit in Game 1 against the Orioles in '96? You almost forget Jeter hit it because of what Mayer did, putting his glove over the wall. What's your take on that?
I don't know if he was. I mean, he might have been bothered that it was looked upon that the Orioles would have won that series. Well, the Orioles, they were still outs to get. That was not the last out of the game, and there were still games to play. I think that might have just annoyed him a bit. But again, he used stuff like that for motivation rather than let it bother him. Usually, people let things bother them, and then it hinders their ability to perform. Not him. If anything, it made him better. Slights made him better. Talking bad about him made him better. As you said before, Chris, a lot like Jordan. The two of them are friends, and they have the same mindset. And, Jordan was more of an outward assassin where you knew he was an assassin, but right. Derek in his own way was an assassin but didn't have a mean streak to him.
100%. Now, how'd you deal with the media? I mean, forget me. I mean, we had him on, yes, on a couple of occasions, spring training. Always cordial, always gave Mike and I good 10, 12 minutes. Gave you thoughtful answers. You knew he didn't want to do it, but he did it because he was Derek Jeter. And you had more of a, day-to-day relationship with him, whether it be on the radio, TV. I mean, you were with him on a constant basis. Big announcements at Yankee Stadium, Old Timers Days, opening days, all those things. Did Michael Kay have a good relationship with Derek Jeter?
You know what? I had a really nice relationship with him. And you never really know exactly where you stand with Derek, but remember they had when the Yankees had the big day at Yankee Stadium for him, and they retired his number after he had finished his last year. He had a big party of all of his teammates that came back, and Joe Torre and their wives and everything. And out of the blue, I got an invitation for me to go there with my wife, and for him to be asking you to be in his inner circle, that in his own way was a real testament. Listen, I trust you, and I appreciate what you did. But the best way I could describe him, Chris, is this way. And I've always told people this. You can knock on Derek's door, and he's going to answer the door. And he's going to talk to you through the screen. It could be for an hour. He's never going to ask you in. You're just never going to know every little single thing about him. He's not going to make you know all the ins and outs that you know about, like, say, Alex or other players. Derek's going to keep a distance and a little bit of a force field around him. He didn't want people in too much. There are very few people that are in like that. Gerald Williams is one. Tino Martinez, Jorge Posada, guys that are great friends. But the fact that I got invited to that party at Cal that was just with his family and his ex-teammates, that did tell you that at least he trusted me, and that made me feel pretty good.
Oh, I sure would. That's a great honor. Good for you. I never knew that. Excellent. Mike, always a pleasure. Good to talk to you again. We're checking. Answer the phone. We're checking. Keep in touch.
All right. I saved the best stuff for you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Michael Kay.